So here we are back where we left off, and let me go ahead and hit the tab key so it brings back all my menus and things. Now I want to paint some grass and stuff up here. So for that I'm going to use one of these grassy paper textures that I created. You can use really anything, but whoops, and of course we need to change brushes. So I'm going to come up, and because I want it to interact with this paper texture, well, first of all I need a new layer in front of the trees, not below them, so I need a new layer on top of here. So new layer. Yep. So I could actually, I guess I'll do that quickly. Add a few leaves. This far back it's not going to really hurt because this is not going to be back where you want to see the detail, but I want to show you how to use the grass to go ahead and get this working. So we'll do this, and this is correct. You could make bushes, you can do anything. It's your world. You can do anything you want in your world. Okay, so there's kind of a basic start. Right now I'm going to drag these two brushes, hold the shift key, and I'm going to drag them off onto, I didn't want to create two new ones, so I'm just going to be dragging off the brushes that I want to use so that I don't have to dig through the menu again. I'm going to use a chalk brush. So it's coming here, and I think I'm going to use, probably try this one, see what happens. So this will interact with the paper texture. So you see that there. Now I made this a long, thin paper texture. Let me undo that. And I really need a new layer to play with this, so let me create a new one. And let's see what happens if I scale the paper texture down. So papers, I want it to be, there's a lot of contrast already, so I don't need too much. This is pretty big paper texture, so let me try, I don't think it goes less than 25%. Let me try 25. And that's going to work really good enough for this. So Control A and backspace this. If you want to really interact well with the paper texture, it's always choose traditional chalk, or what a traditional medium would work with, or any of these that would say, there'll be some that say grainy in front of it. Let me see if I can find one. So grainy hard. If it says grainy in the name, it'll interact with the paper texture, but you'll have to tweak the brush settings a little bit. So I'm just going to go back with square chalk. Let me shut this a little bit, and I'm going to drag this off, put it on my palette here, and now I'm just going to go ahead and paint in some background grass here. Doesn't have to be perfect, because again, this is going to go way back in the background and you won't see it very much. Now because it's very thin, you see some that start spilling over. That is going to be something that you have to take care of in the grain settings. So random grain rotation or position, vary the grain for each brush stroke. That's probably a good one there. So you get a little more randomness in it. Eventually you might want to see the little squiggles and things a little more individually, but it's not real critical right now. So when you get this done, then you decide, oh, do I like that or do I not like that? I don't need it to be selected right now. See, I'm getting some of it because I'm hitting the top of the paper texture. So I'm going to go ahead and just erase that out and leave it. So erasers, and I want square. That'll work for me. So shift and bring it down. And I'm just going to quickly erase that. So this is why, obviously, that I work on layers, because I can come in and erase anything that bothers me or anything I want to change. So let me tab this just for a second so you can see it. So there really is going to be my back layer for this scene in the woods, in the forest, whatever you want to call it. So Control minus, tab. Once I get this done, these layers, the tree trunks, all the way up to this layer 7, first thing I'm going to do is, I've already got it, number 1, Control Alt S, and it saves it to number 2. Now I'm going to collapse these layers. So collapse those. So now my tree's on one very, very back layer. I'll do another Control Alt S, save this version. I'm going to turn on this background color here. And I could just kind of make this, got to get on the right layer done. I could just make this, you know, less opaque if I want. So you can do it a number of ways that way. I might choose colorize, so it adds the gradient color in the back there, and I like that a lot. And so I'm going to take this layer and probably make it a little bit lighter. So this one's a default and this one is colorized, but now I think that looks, you know, a lot better as a far background layer. So what I'm going to do is this, though I don't think I keep wanting these to stack up on top of it. So I'm going to control, this is just an experiment. I'm going to control click on that layer, and I'm going to select this top one and do a Control C, Control V, and drag it below here. So now I've got this layer here, which will be colorized. And you can see if I turn it off, you see this bottom layer. I always like to keep an additional layer out, but sometimes it's really hard to change. So I'll do a Control Alt S again, and then I'm going to collapse these two layers. So this is the background layer. Control Alt S. Okay, so now I'm going to do the next layer up. So on a new layer, I'm going to use the pen tool and make another closer. And I kind of don't want that to reflect too much, that background layer. So let me tweak a couple of the little points here. And this will be the midground layer. So up to Effects, and Shapes, and Convert to Selection. So there's my selection there. Now I want to go ahead and fill this one. So fill, but I want the color to be coming a little more forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on this, no, not that layer. I'm going to select one of these colors down here, but I'm going to make it a little darker. So Alt, and I'm going to make it a little more green, like it's coming forward. Don't want to make it too saturated, so let's fill it on this layer. And that's okay. Okay. Maybe I want it to be, that'll be better for a closer layer. A little darker. This is all just by deciding what you want to do. It really doesn't matter. So Control D, and I will actually maybe play with a little bit and move it around, see if there's something else I want to do. But I think I'm going to leave this one. I'm going to do a Control T and stretch it out a little bit, and I'm going to leave it like this. So now below this layer, I'm going to create a new layer because I want to start with my tree trunks. So I will select this, but of course I don't want those. So let me go back into my nozzles and pick the tree trunks again. That's better, but I want them about twice that big. So let's go. And I'm just going to zoom out so you can see what I'm trying to do. Okay, so I'm trying to follow the contours. But I don't want to control, but I don't want to cover the background too much. So I think that looks good. They're a little squatty to me, and so and my background color isn't exactly the same, but I think it'll be okay. So what I'm going to do is Control T. I'm going to just stretch these babies up. So that looks better to me. And you see I got a little bit here, so I'll just move them down until they're behind the hill there. This I can color in, so I'm not worried at all about it. And now the next thing is I'm going to paint some leaves. So again, a new layer on top of this layer. And you know, you can use, let's see, I'm going to use this time the elliptical one. And at this point, I start losing them into the trees up above. Now, this is no special right or wrong way. I'm just showing you this so you understand the kind of possibilities that you have. And when I get to the corners at this point, I probably want to go ahead and fill them in all the way. So I'll leave some in the middle there, but I'll fill this out all the way. So background color, so I'm going to switch the background color. No, I'm going to keep it the same to go with those. Fill. So get the fill tool. We're on a new layer, and that looks fine. Maybe, let me reselect this. I like to keep them more the same, so I'm going to reselect this layer too. Whoops, didn't want to do that. Wanted to color it on top of itself. Okay, so there's all my basic layers at this point. So go back to my nozzles, my image hose. So you can see how quick this starts going when you get the assets already drawn. And I'm going to have a new layer above this for my leaves, background, brush, and I'm going to make this maybe that big this time. Now if you want sky holes, you can come in and erase with it, or you can just fill it in. I'm just going to let it fill in. There, those leaves are better color. I'm going to get them. No, I'm going to leave this. This is just right for this background. Now you don't want to cover up everything behind it so dense that you can't see anything. So be a little judicious and don't come down too far. And it's also the reason why you see that I raised or stretched out the tree trunks to go up. You have a few coming down here and there. I don't want a lot of variation yet, but I am going to go ahead and use this on some leaves down here, and I'll put some more grass in here too. I'm going to show you, there's a different brush, and that's why I made patterns, and I'm going to show you how you can use a different brush to add some more down here. If I want a little variation, I can switch, but I don't want it yet, because again, these are going back in the background. So okay, Control-Alt-S to save all that, and now I'm going to open the patterns, and I've got one of these patterns fine, so I'm going to select a pattern pen brush. It'll take me just a couple tweaks to see which one I want. This one, no, because I want it to pick up the color. Not that it's terribly important, but there we go. So I'm going to pick off this colored one, and because these, and I'll show it to you, but let me hold shift and drag this down. Okay, I can close this. Let me undo this. So it is smart to use a new layer, so create a new layer. And just to show you what this does with this transparent pattern, see how that paints nicely. Now it's falling behind, so I may want it to go behind, but very nice way to paint grass. It will follow you around. So let me go undo this. I'm going to go back to pretty much same colors, just backspace it. I'm going to go with this color, and I'm going to go on top of the layer so it starts coming forward, and a little bit darker. Now I could get more color variability if I wanted, but I think this is working just fine. A little darker as I come forward. Oh, I've got to put it. You got to make sure your layers are in the right order that you want them. While that sounds obvious, obviously it's not. Okay, so here's my mid-ground layer, pretty much. Now, at this point, these tree trunks are looking a little boring, so I'm going to do a little change on them. And I'm going to select that layer. I'm going to do a Control-Alt-S, save this all first. I'm going to select this layer, the tree trunk layer, and I'm going to create a layer on top of it. So I want it to be just right over the tree trunk layer. And I'm going to fill this with a pattern. So pattern, and it's got, I don't know what some of these are. I was going to use just tree trunk, but I haven't liked that one very much. This one might work, so I'll try a couple. So I'm on a new layer, and I'm going with this bucket tool, and I'm going to select clone source. So, whoops, I selected wrong. No, that's right, but I've got to select the new one. So I'm going to select this path and just see what it does. Yeah, I don't like that so much. So let's select this one. Nope. Okay. Maybe I'll have to go just to my Rocky Textures one. That's the, it's as small as it goes. Nope, off scale. That's the tree bark one, but it repeats itself quite a bit. That may or may not be a problem. Let me change the offset. Let me clear all that. Okay. That didn't work. So I guess we'll go back to cell mode. So backspace. Let me try Rocky Textures, one of these. I actually like those a bit better, I think. So I'm going to stick with the Rocky texture. I'm going to create a new layer, and let me try something else over the new layer. Madness. Let me try gravel. Okay, I don't think I like that. So let me try this. I don't like that. I don't think I want hens and chickens. What about tree branches? Nope. Okay, let me try. This will work. It actually wouldn't work generally, but I think this will work fine. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this layer on top of it, and I'm going to, let's try colorize, and let's try this one, soft light. Hard light. I don't want it to be too obvious. And this one, let's try this on. I think this is going to work. It's kind of all up to me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this original layer. And I'm going to drag it up above here and lower the opacity, because I do want the texturing to be kind of subtle. I think I'm just going to need it to be default. So you can still see a bit of the texture. And I could paint more of this if I wanted. Let me look. I'm going to do a Control-Alt-S. I do think the leaves need to get a little bit darker in this case. So I'm going to group Control-Alt-S. I'm going to group all of these tree branches and try collapsing them and see what happens. Oh, they stay pretty much the same. That's lucky. Okay, so with the leaves here, let me select those and create a new layer, and I'll try filling them again with a pattern. What is that, grass? Nope. I think it's going to be one of my textures here. So, new texture. Control Z. Whoops, Control Z. Okay, yeah, I filled behind. So let me tap this up. And what do I want to do with these? Nope. Nope. Okay, this is not what I want to do. So let me back this off, and let me go ahead and select this layer, and I'm going to hide the marquee because it's really distracting. On this new layer though, I'm going to go ahead and use that image hose with the leaves, and I'm going to have a little bit darker and more color variability. So additional color, I'm going to raise this a little bit, and I need to see if it looks like leaves. Okay, that's a little too much. And this is let me change this background. Actually, this is going to be fine. Except I don't want leaves that big. There's what I want, a little bit more. And it's just to get, again, some texture on these back leaves. And one thing you've got to do is make sure you remember to undo the selection. Do a Control D, otherwise you'll wonder why you can't paint on anything else. So see, I can't paint there. I need to Control D so I can get in and paint in that. Same way with anything else. So I'll do that, Control D. And now I can paint over this. So I'm going to lighten the back a little bit more so I can get some more light leaves in there. And then I'm going to slightly go back to a little bit darker color on the bottom edges here. Okay, that should work. Now I just want to set to multiply, That's part of the problem. Let's see what colorize does. Let's just go multiply, but I'm going to lower this down because I don't want so much difference between, that there's an obvious difference between these trees and the bark that's on here. I'm not going to worry about this right now, so I'm going to go ahead and Control-Alt-S, and then I'm going to take this layer and this layer and collapse those. And that's what I was afraid would happen. So Z and just going to group them. Okay, and I can group all of these basic layers, collapse them. And I can collapse this one. So there's the midground layer. Let me tab out of this so you can see the whole thing. Do a Control-Alt-S and tab. So there's pretty much the middle layer of what we're doing, and we'll pick it up and do the front layer in the next little video.